welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, my name is Caitlin and I go by Adeline. And in today's video, I'm going to be showing you all the books that I found on TikTok, and I think I'm going to tell you whether or not they're worth the hype or not. So let's just hop right in. Starting off with book number 1 is Bittersweet Memories by Katharina Moara. I don't know how to say that name, but I absolutely love this book. 5 stars, and this book, let me just tell you, made me cry. This book made me cry, like actual tears. This girl named Alana, she meets this guy at the cemetery during her mother's funeral, and the guy there lost his dad. That's the reason why he's there. And he's a little bit older when they first meet, so they don't really hit it off. He's just giving her great advice while she was crying. He ended up giving her this handkerchief. She kept it ever since. Later, I want to say years maybe go by, or months, and her dad makes her work in this homeless shelter that he used to work at. He ends up homeless because he had this wicked stepmother that kicked him out of the house as soon as his father died. They hit it off, they're doing great, and when she finally turns 18, they give it a shot. Her dad had an accident. I'm not going to say. He had hired somebody to kill him, tried to claim insurance fraud, whatever. She ends up homeless. They're at the shelter together, and they end up getting together, but something happens. Something tragic happens, and oh my god, put me in tears. But later on throughout the years, he finds her again, and she ends up being with his younger stepbrother, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. But I definitely recommend this book. It's spicy if you're into spicy romance. So yeah. The next book I have for you guys is A Million Kisses in Your Lifetime by Monica Murphy. And this one was okay. It wasn't the greatest. It wasn't my favorite. This one was okay. I think this was hyped up on TikTok because of one of the things the male character does in this book is really funny, and in the end it was really sweet. But they go to this like private prep school, and it's like a forced proximity enemies to lovers romance, I guess. I don't know. There really wasn't any conflict in this book, which irritated me a little bit, just a tiny bit, because you would think, well, I mean, I don't want to say there wasn't conflict, but there wasn't enough conflict between the characters. You know what I'm saying? Overall, I think I gave this 4 stars, but really thinking back on it, I should have gave it 3 stars. It is spicy, so yeah. It's basically like the old school high school opposites get together. And yeah, but in the end of this book, it just was so cute, so sweet. He ended up buying this painting she loved, and it was like priceless. So he paid a lot of money for it. And I also forgot to mention that her dad does not like her being with this guy. So yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about it. I recommend this book. If you are starting off reading and you want to get into romance more, or you're starting off on Booktok, or starting off reading in general, this is a good book to pick up. The next book I have for you guys is The Hating Game by Sally Throne. This was hyped up on Booktok a really long time ago, and I absolutely love this book. I do recommend this book. It was a little overhyped on TikTok though. It was worth the read in my opinion, because I think because of this book. It kind of reminds me of me and my husband in a way. So yeah. So this book is basically a enemies to lovers romance in the workplace. And Lucy and Joshua, those are the main characters' names. They find out something's happening within the company. They make an agreement that if one of them gets a promotion within the company, the other has to resign. So that happens along with them. I don't even remember how they got together. He's always been in love with her kind of romance. That's what I remember about it, because there was this one scene in the book. I'm gonna spoil it for you guys. There was this one scene in the book where his bedroom color was the same color of her eyes, and oh, that just got to my heart. I was like, oh, that's so cute. Stalker-like, but cute. I know that there was a conflict that happened where he took her to meet his family and she had to pretend to be his date or something like that. Something happened like that, and she finds something out, and that's when they kind of sizzled out a little bit, but they end up back together and it happily ever after. But I definitely recommend this book. I think it was worth the hype because of how familiar it was to me and my husband's relationship. So yeah. Another old school Booktok book is The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. I read this back in the day when it first came out. I think not when it first came out, but a few months later I got around to it. I heard so much good things about this book, okay? I do not think it was worth the hype on TikTok. However, I did enjoy this read. It's a billionaire kind of sort of situation with the worker. It was an interesting storyline, I will say that, where this girl works at the theme park that this guy owns, and he's trying to make it better, and she's got some good ideas. I forgot how they end up together. That's how you know when I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it because I can't remember details about this book. So it is spicy. Do I recommend? Yeah, sure. If you're trying to get into reading, into romance, I do recommend this book, although it wasn't my cup of tea. So that's my opinion. Will I be reading the next book? Yes, because I don't want to quit a series, but I don't know. If you could read, series, but they're standalone series, I don't know. Can I just not read them? Can I just not read them? Bittersweet Memories was also standalone. I do want to continue the series though, so yeah. The next book I have for you guys is Twisted Love by Anna Hong, and this is part of the Twisted series. It's the first book. I loved this book, okay? Was it one of my favorites? No. I read the second book. I'm on the third book now. I haven't started it yet, but Twisted Love is a best friend's brother romance, and he's kind of part of the mafia in a way, I think. I don't know. He has a lot of money. He is actually. I think it's, I want to say Russian mob. I don't know. Anyways, it's mafia romance. He doesn't know how to show feelings. She tries to get him to show feelings. They end up falling for each other. He messes up in a way and returns to get his love. So there is a lot of traumatizing stuff in this book, but they both learned how to deal with the trauma together. So I recommend this book. I loved it. It was worth the hype, although I think it was overhyped just a little. I liked the second book better than this book, because back in my back in the day, I used to be like a mafia romance lover, but I'm not into that anymore. I really am not, because I used to read it so much back in the day. So, but I do think the actual series within itself is worth the hype, because these are kind of standalone. They engage in one another's stories, and I think that's unique within a standalone series. I want to say they are standalone, but that's just me. I don't think you have to read this book for the second book. You can just read the second book, and you might be missing a few details from this book, but other than that, I think you can read it by itself. That's just my opinion. Don't come for me. But I recommend this book. The next book I have for you guys is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I think it's overhyped on Booktok. Don't come for me. Don't come for me. We ain't gonna have none of that. We ain't gonna have none of that. You wanna know why I think this is overhyped? Because when you guys say there's smut in it, it's really great smut, it's really not. It's basic. But I will say, however, that I absolutely loved the storyline. Absolutely loved it. I think Atlas is the one. I haven't read the second book, y'all, so we're not going to talk about it. I'm going to get into the second book. I think in general, Colleen Hoover is overhyped, but I haven't read any other book. I do plan to read one other book, and it's what's it called? Verity, whatever that one's called. I plan to read that one and finish the second book in this, and that's it. I think Colleen Hoover is overhyped. She has basic writing, like Wattpad writing, but it's good, interesting, you know? If you get me, you get me. If you don't come at me. I'm just saying my opinion. I do love this storyline, however, because it is a serious situation, and how people actually, I don't want to say how they actually deal with like this situation, but sometimes in the end, people actually handle the situation like she did. Others are unfortunately not able to deal with this situation. The situation I'm talking about is domestic violence. I've actually went through that myself, and you know, it's crazy to me because I come out on the other side, like thinking to myself, if somebody ever did that to me again, I would leave that person. But I don't know, some people just, it doesn't click. They think that's love, and it's actually not, and I feel sorry for those, because I've been in a situation like that before with my actual biological father and my mother. Not getting into detail anymore about that, but overall, let's get back to the topic. Overall, I think this was too much overhyped, and it still is till this day, because the movie's coming out. I am gonna watch the movie because I love Blake Lively, but that's the only reason. So yeah. The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, I think was overhyped. They say it's got romance in it. It does not. When I think of romance, I think of halfway of the book, not just the last like 5 pages of the book, not even. I just overall didn't like this book. I don't think it's worth the hype. I will say I'm reading the second book because I don't want to quit the series, because I hear a lot of y'all say great things about this freaking series. I don't know if I can get into it. I don't know. I don't like the modern time kind of fantasy world, fae and humans. that kind of thing. It's supposed to be magical, and it's like basic. It's basic. I'm sorry, it's basic. The guy bullied this human. He was a fae. He has a freaking tail, y'all. Y'all hype that up too. He was a fae, and she's human, and he bullies her the whole freaking book, throughout the whole freaking book for it. And there was a lot of betrayal. I loved that part. That's the only part I liked, was the betrayal. So, overhyped. I'm telling y'all right now, overhyped. I will say, if you're getting into fantasy, this is the book for you. I will say that. I just don't have good things to say about this book, y'all. Y'all tricked me. Tricked me. If the second book is not better, I am DNFing the series. So, that's all I gotta say. The next book I have for you guys is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. And it is one of my all-time favorite series. I definitely recommend. I think it was worth the hype, if not more hype on TikTok. So basically, A Court of Thorns and Roses is about like a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and there's like fays and stuff. It was just really interesting. This girl, she ends up having to feed her family because of poverty, stuff like that. Her family was poor, and she was the only one that could hunt. So she goes out into this forest one day, sees a wolf. She hasn't seen like animals like out there in like years that big. So she kills the wolf, thinking, she thought it was a fae, so she killed it anyways. Turns out it actually was a fae, and she was like, whoa, didn't know that, but she actually did know that. Sold the fae parts, pieces, whatever, body to the like wolf part of him to like get food or whatever. And then Tamlin comes into the picture. He's in his wolf form, and he's like, you have to come live with me or we have to kill you. It's eye for an eye. It's like a treaty, a very old treaty. She goes and she finds out fays aren't that bad as the stories she's been told. She ends up falling for Tamlin, but there's a catch here. Tamlin, he had a curse on him by this girl, this fae that was like ruling most of the land at that time. There's this place like under the mountain. Anyways, the curse would have been broken if Farah told Tamlin that she loved him. That didn't happen. He sent her home knowing what was gonna happen, and she's like, oh no, and then goes under the mountain, solves all these riddles trying to get Tamlin and the others free. And that was book 1, and it was really enjoyable. Book 2 is a plot twist, along with book 3, along with book 4 and 5, and so on and so forth. This is one of my favorite series. I'm sorry to say this, but this is above Shatter Me. It was so well written, and I definitely enjoyed it, and I definitely recommend. Next up, we have The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. I don't know last names. Anyways, this book I definitely recommend. I definitely think it's not hyped up enough on TikTok. I've seen it a few times, but not a lot. I enjoyed this book. Actually, a coworker encouraged me to read it, so I did, and I ended up loving this book. So there's this girl. She's put into an insane asylum because she shoots her husband 5 times in the face and stops speaking after that. Well, this new therapist comes in, and he had made it his mission to get her to talk about what happened. And there is a very big plot twist in the end. I definitely recommend if you love thrillers, stuff like that, mysteries, because I also wanted to know. And I was like, wait, did she actually kill her husband? And stuff like that. But yeah, I definitely recommend this book. And you won't regret reading this book. Next up, we have Zodiac Academy, The Awakening by Caroline Peckham and Susan Valentine. Screwing up these names, y'all. Anyways, I think this book was overhyped on TikTok. It was kind of like The Cruel Prince, where everybody bullied these girls constantly. There wasn't romance in it, even though they're saying there were romance. Although I do like this storyline, whatever you want to call it. I do love this one rather than The Cruel Prince. So basically these girls, they're twins. They were pretty sketchy in like the human realm, but they get transferred to this magical realm and find out that they have all of these magic abilities and that they have too much, and they were part of a royal family. And that's all I remember about it. I'm gonna pick up the next book just to see if the next book is any better. I recommend this book if you're starting off reading fantasy. It's not really romantic in any kind of way. It has a lot of bullies, believe me. But yeah, that's all I remember about it. It was just these group of guys bullied these two girls a lot because they wanted to seem like they were the most powerful, even though these two girls are the royal bloodline or something like that, and they have to prove themselves and stuff like that. It was very enjoyable while I read it. It's like 3 stars in my opinion. So yeah, that's all I gotta say about it. The next book I have for you guys is The Song of Achilles by Madeline, however you want to say her name. I enjoyed this book. I didn't cry. I kind of guessed what was going to happen, and it did happen. This is about Achilles and this guy. I can't remember his name. But anyways, I know it starts with a P, but anyways, they end up becoming best friends, and then a little bit more, and then the side is very hard, very sad. The end is very sad. It didn't make me cry though, because I kind of guessed that's what would happen. I recommend this book. I loved it. Is it worth the hype on TikTok? I don't think so, but hear me out. I think her next book I'm gonna pick up, Circe. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not really sure. I'm gonna pick up that book and see if I like that one better than this one. This one was really good. It was beautifully written. Greek mythology. Loved it. Mwah. I just didn't like how the story ended. That's all. It just made me sad, but it didn't make me cry, you know? I think it's overhyped, but if you want to start getting into like Greek mythology, stuff like that, I do recommend this book. It's a really good read. It's got a character glossary because it has like all of the mythical gods in there, Greek gods in there, and demigods and stuff like that. It's kind of, I hate how this book looks. I took it to the beach with me like 3 years ago, and this is what happened to it. So, but I definitely recommend this book. Next up, we have Haunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton. This book is so hyped up on TikTok, and I read it and I was like, I can see why it's hyped up on TikTok, because it's like a Wattpad like I don't want to say this without looking crazy, but I've read stuff like this on Wattpad. Like, it was beautifully written. Loved the writings. Storyline was okay. It was weird, but okay. Like, okay, I guess we're going with this. But I do have to continue to the next book because the female character gets kidnapped in the end. I'm like, ooh, what's he gonna do? He's gonna find his girl. But the storyline was weird. So this girl, she's a book writer, and she gets stalked by this guy, and he owns his own like security company, kind of like that, and she hires like his company to come out, put in like cameras and stuff, because she feels like somebody's stalking her. They're leaving roses for her. It's like a cat and mouse duo. I think that's what it is. But it's a dark romance, spicy, if you're not into that. I don't recommend if you're new to like dark romance, spicy stuff like that, because this is like one of the worst. Like, it's not one of the worst I've seen, because I've read stuff on Wattpad, okay? But this is one of the more dark ones that have been like published and hyped up. Is it worth the hype on TikTok? Not really. Don't hate on me for saying that. Not really. Everybody loves this book. I liked it. I enjoyed it. It was a weird storyline for me. I was like, okay, we're doing this. Oh, okay, we're doing that. And it was just weird. Like, he didn't kidnap her or anything. I'm gonna sound weird for saying this. He didn't kidnap her or anything. He just, like, stalked her, and she kind of fell in love with her stalker. And that's weird, right? Is it just me? Like, you would think he would want to kidnap her or something, right? Like the dark mafia romance? No? Okay. Well, it is hyped up. Everybody loves it. I enjoyed it. I'm gonna read the second book, but I hear that one's sad, so let's see if it makes me cry, I guess. The next book I have for you guys is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. I don't think this is hyped up like A Court of Thorns and Roses, but it is still up there. It's like an all-time, like, I want to say it's a classic book, but it's not, because everybody seems to enjoy it, guys and gals. So I've only read Throne of Glass, the second book, and then I read the novella. And then I'm on the third book. I'm gonna get to it. I enjoy Sarah J. Maas's writing. It's great. I don't think this is hyped up enough on TikTok. It's less, I want to say it's less spicy with the first three books I've read. It's less spicy than A Court of Thorns and Roses is like no spice at all. So I want to say it's a young adult fantasy, or just YA fantasy. Throne of Glass is about a girl. She's been a prisoner, and this king and his kingdom is having like a competition within who can be the king's assassin kind of deal. So the prince picks her as like, he like endorses her in a kind of way, I guess. And she falls in love with the prince and then breaks up with the prince as well in this book. I enjoyed this book so much. I did. She has to find out why her competition's dying, along with not getting killed herself. She finds out why. And it's fantasy, assassin, fae, all that kinds of things. If you like those, I definitely recommend. And she's a strong female lead, so if you love strong females, this is the book for you. Credits by Penelope Douglas. Let's talk about it. Y'all are wrong for hyping this up on TikTok. Y'all are really wrong. I feel wrong talking about this book. I don't want anybody to ever think I've read this book when I have, okay? I finished the book. I gave it like, I wanted to give it like 2.5 stars. It's 3 stars. I just, this is like a Wattpad romance book. And they keep it in the family, if you know what I mean. This girl's mom and dad died. She goes to live with like her step uncle and her step cousins. That's all I'm gonna say about it. If you know, you know. And if you don't, well, look it up and read the synopsis for yourself, because that's all I'm gonna say about it. Y'all hype this book up too much. It doesn't deserve the hype. That's all I'm gonna say. And that's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. Next up, we have Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I think that's how you say her name. I don't know. This was hyped up on Booktok. I've had it for like ever. Oh my gosh. This duology was like one of the... It really got me. I loved it. I love the duology. I love Kaz, however you say his name. He has my heart. But it's about this person enhancing witch powers, magic, with this sort of drug. He gets kidnapped by this country, and somebody pays this group. I want to say it's like a Renaissance gang, because that's kind of what that's kind of what it was. And it was so cool. You get different point of views in the book from different characters. I love Angie, if that's how you say her name. She's known as the Wraith. I love Kaz. But the second book was kind of sad. Made me tear up a little bit. They get hired to go out and get this person, and they get double-crossed. It's pretty good. I definitely recommend. I don't recommend if you're trying to get into fantasy, because I myself, when I was getting into the fantasy world, read this and I was kind of confused. I had to go back, reread some of it, but overall I definitely enjoyed this book. I definitely recommend. The hype on TikTok was definitely worth it, and I have not read her other series. I don't know what her other series was. It kind of relates to this in a way with the magic system and stuff, but other than that, I know it's on Netflix. I do know that, but I wish they would make a Netflix series movie about Six of Crows and the duology. That's just me. I don't know if anybody else would be up for that, but that's all I gotta say about this book. Next up, we have Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. I'm trying to read the 3rd book in the series this month, so that's going to be fun. I don't think this was like hyped up. It was kind of hyped up. I've seen it on my For You page a few times. I don't think it was worth that much of a hype anyways, so I'm not mad about that. I did read it. I did enjoy it, but it was bleh to me, kind of, sort of. So this world is divided by blood. There's silver blood, the royal blood, and then there's red blood, normal human blood. Because silver blood had like magical abilities, whereas red blood was just human, you know, and they were like lower class and stuff. Anyways, this girl finds out, she gets a new job at the kingdom. I want to say it is like his kingdom was like made of glass or whatever. I think that's with this series. Anyways, she gets hired, and well, the day or like a week before, I want to say, she meets the prince, and she tried to like steal something off of him. I want to say it was money. And he figured it out, and then she told him a little bit about her life, and he was like, okay, just, you get the job at the kingdom, something like that. That's what I remember about that. And then she finds out she has silver abilities, but she bleeds red. And there's never been something like that before, so the king and the queen make her like this long lost princess, like kind of deal, trying to hide the fact that, you know, in the end, she gets betrayed and they go off into the next book. All I have to say about this book is it worth the hype? Not in my opinion. Is it a good read? Yes. I think if you're trying to start reading fantasy and dystopian books, this is a good start along with the Shatter Me series. The next book I have for you guys is Shatter Me by Tara Mafi. I think that's how you say your name. Anyways, this I think was definitely worth the hype on TikTok, because when I got back into reading, it was like before Booktok even started, I would say. And when I got TikTok, that's when kind of like Booktok started, and I was like, okay, I need recommendations, and this was like a recommendation. The only reason I picked up this book was the first sentence, and it was wild. I absolutely love this series. Kind of reminded me of like the old dystopian era back in 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, so on. Basically, this girl named Juliet, she's locked up in an insane asylum, and I'm only describing the first book. She's locked up, and this guy gets put in there with her, and she's like, I have the ability to touch people and they drop dead. And she finds out she can touch him. He ends up being an undercover soldier, and they get sent back off to the the base or whatever, Sector 45. This, the commander, or the commander's son, Warner, is trying to get her to use her as a weapon. And then at the end of this book, Juliet runs off with the undercover soldier, which his name is Adam, runs off with Adam, trying to hide from Warner. There's a lot of plot twists in here. I enjoyed those. I enjoyed the cliffhangers. The only thing I hated about the series was the very, very end. I felt like it was too fast-paced, and there wasn't a lot of, I want to say information, but that's not it. There wasn't a lot of, I don't know. There wasn't a, like, you know how at the end of the book, it seemed too fast-paced? Well, that's how the end of the series was. But I do recommend the series and this book. The next book I have for you guys is The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. And I absolutely enjoyed this book. I follow the author on TikTok, and that's why I included this in the video. I don't think it's hyped up enough on TikTok. I'm not sure. I haven't seen it much anywhere really except from the author. But I absolutely enjoyed it. If you haven't watched my latest videos, you need to go check them out. It explains this book. I definitely recommend if you're trying to get into like a thriller kind of deal. If you like The Silent Patient, and if you read The Silent Patient, you'll definitely love this book. Big old plot twist at the end. I finally know who murdered this guy's mistress. So that's all I'm going to say about this book. And finally, we have the last book, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I absolutely devoured this book. I absolutely loved the writing, how she went back and forth between time, stuff like that. So basically, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is about this girl. She's born in the 1800s, the early 1800s, and her parents are trying to force her to get married. And she's just trying to discover herself, do stuff for herself. She doesn't want to get married, stuff like that. and she was talking about a different religion besides Christianity. And she goes to this woman who worships other gods besides God himself. She goes to her and is like, yada yada yada, what is this about? And she tells Addie, you know, don't pray to these gods at night. It's not gonna be good. Well, the day of the wedding comes up and she gets super freaked out, super nervous, and she runs into the woods at night and she accidentally prays to the gods of night. And he's like a little devil coming up in there and was like, yeah, I'll help you with your problem, but you're gonna owe me something in return. She's like, done deal. Anyways, he tricked her. He made it to where she couldn't be remembered. Like, if I was talking to you and you went out and did something that came back, you wouldn't remember Addie. You wouldn't, her own parents didn't remember her, stuff like that. Well, later on in 2014, she meets this guy, steals from his bookshop, and then comes back trying to return it to the next day, and somehow he remembers her. And it was a brilliant story, good plot, and I just absolutely enjoyed this book. I think it should be a classic one day. That's how much I enjoyed this book. A lot of people don't like it because it's like retelling, like kind of like a repeat. And I'm just like, I kind of enjoyed it because it reminded me, and then, you know, so on and so forth. I definitely recommend this if you're trying to get into fantasy and all of that. It kind of gave me the Crucible vibes if you're into that. And yeah, that's all I gotta say about this. 5 stars. Definitely recommend. So that was all the books I read that were on Booktok, and I told you if they were worth the hype in my opinion or not. Like, subscribe, comment, you know what to do, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.